In last class, we have completed a very, very important discussion, the most important thing of Advaita Vedanta, that is Tattvam Asi. Today, we will discuss about ego and desires. Ego and desires. The seeker after truth or Satyanveshi or Mumukshu must always remember the detached nature of the self and give up all identification with the ego. It is the ego that brings the self back again and again to the world of ignorance. And that is why Punarjanma, Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Janani Jathare Shayanam. Iha samsare khalu dustare, kripaya pare pahi murare. Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Govindam Bhaj Mudamate. It is the ego that aggravates desires because sangat sanjayate kamaha. When desire increases, activities also increases. So वासना हम लोगों को पुश करते हैं कर्म करने के लिए, क्योंकि वासना की परितुष्टि ही कर्म से होता है. When desires increase, activities also increase. And when there is an increase of activities, there is an increase of desires. It is vice versa. Desires creates activities, and activities creates again desires. Clear? Thus, desires and activities move in a vicious cycle, and man's imprisonment in the body is never at an end. मुक्ति तो बहुत दूर की बात है. The destruction of desires has been described as liberation or moksha. And the man free from desires is called Jivana Mukta. Jivana Mukta, one liberated in life. Even after the truth has been known, there often remains the strong, beginningless, and stubborn notion that one is the doer of action and the experiencer of its results. In previous earlier texts, we also discussed elaborately regarding this, that after realizing the truth, also sometimes we forget it, and the strong pulling of senses of doership and enjoyership remains. This notion has to be carefully removed by living in a state of constant commune with the self. Only thus may one experience the bliss of liberation, Paramananda. Even though living in a body also, the seeker or the mumukshu must not be inadvertent or lazy or careless about his steadfastness to self knowledge. जो ज्ञान तो हो गया, अभी चर्चा की कोई जरूरत नहीं, ऐसा होना नहीं चाहिए. Inadvertence is death. Pramadavai mrityu, Upanishad is saying. Inadvertence is death. This forgetfulness is actual death. Inadvertence, delusion, egoism, bondage, and suffering are the successive links in the chain of worldly life. Inadvertence, delusion, egoism, bondage, and suffering. Again, it's a circle. If the mind ever so slightly strays from the inner self and moves into the outer world, it goes down and down, just as a ball carelessly dropped from the top of a staircase bounces from step to step and does not stop until it reaches the bottom. And it increases. If you ever go to any climbing place ever, like trekking, you will find the small piece of stone when starts and ends in a big force. Even avalanche, I don't know you have any idea of that. It starts with a very small piece of, cladded snow, but it ends up with a huge snow, and it floods the whole village. So whenever we will be inadvertent in our life, first it will be very less. We can think, "Arey, this small matter, why should we think?" But when we start losing the control over it, it becomes bigger. A lot of people comes to me, "Swamiji, why it happens?" Now, when you started means it happens. We don't care about our mistakes. We entertain our mistakes, and it becomes a huge. The truth of the self is extremely subtle and cannot be reached by a distracted mind. It is realized only by noble souls of pure mind, and even by them only through extraordinary concentration. Clear? Now I will just light up on the topic that I am Brahman. We will discuss it right now. See, the disciple learns from the teacher the precise meaning of Tattvamasi, or that thou art. Rejecting the attributes erroneously superimposed on that or tat and on thou or you, he understands that the formula refers to the absolute oneness of the individual self and Brahman, or the supreme self, experienced on the plane of pure consciousness. As he meditates on his oneness, there arises in his mind a state or vritti which makes him feel that he is Brahman, pure by nature, eternal, self-illumined, free, infinite, supremely blissful, and one without a second. This mental state, illumined by the reflection of pure consciousness, destroys his ignorance and doubts regarding Brahman. Yet even now Brahman is only a state of wave of the mind or vritti. As the ignorance is destroyed, ignorance about self, ignorance about the whole universe, when it is destroyed, and doubts regarding Brahman is also destroyed. Yet even now Brahman is only a state of wave of mind. But when everything destroys, the ignorance destroys, as the ignorance is destroyed, its effects, its various mental states are destroyed too. Just as when a cloth is burned, the thread imbibed in the cloth is also burned. The wrap and woof are burned. Hence, the mental state colored by Brahman, which forms part of what I can tell, which forms the parts of those effects, is also destroyed. When the mental state is destroyed, there remains only the consciousness reflected in that state, which, unable to illumine the supreme and self-effulgent Brahman, becomes overpowered by it. Further, on the destruction of this mental state or vritti, the reflection reverts back to the Supreme Brahman. Suppose you are standing in front of the mirror. So what you see, or what we see, not you, I also see the same. The reflection or pratibimba, isn't it? So if by chance anything happens, if the mirror breaks down, what will happen? The reflection reverts back to the source. प्रतिबिंब बिंब में मिल जाते हैं, एक हो जाते हैं बिंब के साथ. Okay. So just as the image of a face in a mirror reverts back to the face itself when the mirror is broken or removed, thus the subject and the object, pure consciousness and the perceiving consciousnesses, become one. The pure consciousness and perceiving consciousness, means which was only the appearance, become one. When the duality is removed, there remains only the Supreme Brahman, one without a second, utterly indescribable in words, anirvachaniya. This experience is known only to him who has attained it.